All right, everyone. Welcome to Diverse Talking Heads podcast. I'm your man, Calvin Gibbs, and we're so happy that you're checking out this episode of Diverse Talking Heads. We have a hot one for you today. This is something that we've been talking about, we've been thinking about for a while, and it's really relevant to what's going on in our country because people always have to work, but the way that we got jobs, let's say in the, well, let's say just say 50 years ago, all through the 70s and 80s, up to the current time is a whole different ball game. So I'm here with this panel of experts tonight, and I'm going to ask them if they would just give their first name. We'll start with the ladies first.
Hi, I'm Amy.
And the next lady?
Hi, I'm Karen.
Gentlemen.
I'm Charlie. Always glad to be here, Kelvin.
And I'm Dan.
All right. Well, let's get right to it. When you all first went looking for a job, maybe your first job back in the day, how did you all go about that process? I know what I did. I couldn't wait till Sunday to get that Sunday paper, and it had the big section in it. And of course, I'm from New York City, so it was the New York Times. But how did you guys go about finding jobs?
I did something similar, except I used the Chicago Reader. When I was in college looking for something, that seemed to be the one that had the lower level instead of the executive job. So I also went to the paper.
All right. Anyone else?
I did footwork and the New York Times also.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, back in the day, those papers, the Chicago Tribune, the Reader, the New York Times, this Sunday section for employment was a couple of hours read to get through it. All the jobs was there. All of the contacts was there. All you had to do was call the number. Just call somebody on Monday morning and set up an appointment and find out where they were at and go and visit and take your resume to them and take it from that point. But what a different world we live in now. If you was to look for classifieds, you wouldn't find any jobs in there. Everything is online now, right? There's Indeed and there's Monster and a few flex jobs, a few things like that. But was it better back in the day or is it better now? Thoughts?
Well, for me personally, I think it's better now. I actually like the internet, and the internet didn't come to my life till middle age. I kind of wish it was, when I was 20 or earlier. And I think not to say my nightlife would be necessarily better because of that, but I tend to communicate better through the internet than I found, back then, going door to door or, sending out the resumes and all that sort of thing. So I'm actually a fan of the internet. And the internet's not perfect, obviously, but if you ever ask me what was something that came later in my life, or which was earlier, that would be it.
Okay. Anyone else?
What I find interesting is that, yes, it looks like there's more available, and you can go to all these sites, and there's a lot of overlapping stuff, and some of them aren't still active, and everything else. And you can look. You could sit at home and just go through the internet all day. But the interesting thing is, still the best way to find a job is through somebody you know, and to network, and to get in. And I just went through this 6 months ago when I started a new position, was because of somebody I knew this was an opening. He recommended me in, and it led from there. I think one of the things that the internet has done it has allowed more access to people, but at the same time, I think it actually makes HR people a bit lazier. I think they can just say, well, we have this database. But, you know, if you got 3,000, 4,000 resumes or something, how do you read that? So now we're kind of overwhelmed, and anybody could apply to anything. Yes, there are some hits, but if you look at the statistics, it's only about 1% of people land jobs off of the job sites. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Now, I don't miss the days when I had to type my resume on, you know, nice vellum paper and not make one typo, because then I'd have to go back and redo the entire thing because putting a little whiteout on there just didn't fly. And, you know, being able to put it in something like Word or something nowadays and shoot it off in a PDF or whatever I like to do. So there are good changes, but I still think it comes down to the human factor. And I think we've seen this a lot during the pandemic, because companies that are still trying to do it the way they did before, just relying on databases, are not finding people.
Well, Dan, I think that it should always come down to the human being, because this is just my point of view. But when I was calling a company to find out more about the job, or where to take my resume, or make the interview appointment, I was talking to a real person. Somebody would answer the phone. They didn't have caller ID or voice messages back then. So I was actually talking to somebody, and that was always expected. Now you send resumes out. I mean, you can send 10, 15 out in a day perhaps, and probably won't hear from most of them. So you don't know if they actually are considering you. You don't know much more than what was written about the job. You can't ask anybody because it's all online. And I think that human factor is lost. But we're going to talk about ways that the US, just in the US, workforce has changed since, let's say, the Great Recession. They say that a smaller share of Americans are now in the labor force. Okay, so just think back. The workforce is getting more diverse. Is this a good, bad, indifferent thing? There's more gray in the workforce. Gray, color of your hair.
Mhm.
Unemployed people are out of work for longer
Yeah.
than they were 50 years ago. And the shift towards service jobs continue, although more slowly these days. Are these good things, bad thing, indifferent? Thoughts, comments, statements?
You touched on a lot of good points, Calvin. When you say diverse, explain that. So I'm not sure how to comment on that. I want to, but
Well,
when you
Well, it says the workforce is getting more more diverse. That means everyone from every walk of life, religion, sex, culture are being involved or introduced or welcomed into the workforce.
okay, yeah, I can agree with that. But I mean, from my observation, I've seen the diversity of people of all different ethnic backgrounds, just different people. But I think that with the online applications, the algorithms that they use can sometimes stop a good fit for that job from getting that job.
Mhm.
That person might have the experience. A lot of people nowadays, from don't recommend other people because they don't know about they know them, but they don't know about their work ethic. So that's another hesitant thing that they do. They're not sure, because there was a time when you could say, hey, call so and so, they have a position open, because I've done it for a lot of people and people have done it for me. You know, I think you'd be a good fit, and like you said, you would have that personal conversation with whoever the HR rep is and find out more about the job, and determine if you're a good fit, if it's something you want to do.
That's true. And that scanning of those resumes, as you said, that's called the ATS, the
Mhm.
the application or applicant tracking system. Okay,
Yeah.
and there's keywords, there's buzzwords that you can put into your resume to kind of flag the system, the software, that they should be
Mhm.
looking at yours. But when you have so many hundreds, thousands of people using those same buzzwords, and I would
Yeah.
imagine sometimes using them incorrectly, um, the system kind of gets overloaded. So what do you guys think about there's more gray in the workforce?
I happen to disagree with that. The older worker is being pushed out in multiple companies. It's very common it's starting around the 40s now. 50s and 60s are pushed out. They have
Mhm.
much longer times to get back to work. A lot of them have given up and have dropped out of the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
Ageism seems to be, so ageism is an ism we all are going to have to deal with. It's basically prejudice against your own future self.
Mhm.
And it seems to be acceptable not to talk about it. We fortunately have started to talk about other isms, and we're starting to deal with them. We still have a long way to go, but we're at least talking about them and starting to do something about it. But ageism, I think that older workers all over are being pushed out, and I don't believe it's getting greater. I just don't think, from my own observation, from my own experience, from people I know, people I've studied and talked to, it's becoming harder and harder as you get it. Now, the interesting thing in today's world, they say we can't find anybody. Well, if you walk by the talent every single day because of your own hiring prejudices, you are the problem, not the workers. The talent is there.
Mhm.
We throw out terms like overqualified, which means you're too old. They put in things like 6 to 8 years of experience when they really want somebody with 20. There's all these little tweaks that they do to the ATS system that you talk about that throws people out if they're older. And a lot of times you're more expensive. They're saying, well, you're too expensive, or you don't want to do a job that's less than you did before, but they don't ask you, they tell you.
But Dan, you will admit that people are living longer, right?
You're living longer, but
you're living longer and you have to support yourself.
Yes,
so,
but I believe that.
So you may not get, but you
have a system now.
Wait a minute, wait a minute. You may not get what you are expecting or what you're worth, but you're still in the workforce. True or false?
But you're throwing all that talent to the side. You're throwing brain power to the side. I think that's wrong. We have a system where you're going to live to 90 or 100, but you're told that you're no longer worthwhile after you're 50.